Hey, YouTube. I have been a lurker here forever, but I have never had the guts to post until now. This is going to be a long one, and it is, well, it is a lot. I am 19, and I am in love with a 70-year-old man named Henry. Yeah, I know how that sounds. I can already imagine the comments, but I am asking you to hear me out. This is not some fling or weird phase, it is real, it is deep, and it has changed my life in ways I cannot even explain. I want to share our story, especially the parts that make my heart race, because I need to get this out, and maybe some of you will understand what it is like to find love in the most unexpected place. It all started a year ago, when I was 18, just out of high school, and working at this little bookstore in my small town. It was my escape, a cozy place with old wooden floors, shelves overflowing with books, and that faint smell of aged paper that felt like home. I was kind of lost, figuring out who I was, and the bookstore was where I could breathe. That is where I met Henry. He walked in one rainy afternoon, looking for some obscure poetry book. He was tall, with silver hair and these warm, crinkly eyes that lit up when he smiled. His voice was deep and gentle, like he had lived 1,000 lives and wanted to tell you about every one. We started talking, poetry at first, then books, then life. He was a retired literature professor, widowed a few years back, and he had this way of making me feel like my thoughts mattered. Like I was more than just a confused teenager. At first, it was just friendly. He would stop by the bookstore every week or so, always with that smile, and we would talk for hours, about his travels, my dreams, or the way a good book could break your heart. I started saving books for him, ones I thought he would love, and he would bring me coffee, the kind with just the right amount of cream. We would sit in the back of the store, lost in conversation, until my boss would give me that get back to work look. It was easy, natural, like we had always known each other. A few months in, we started hanging out outside the bookstore. It was not a big deal at first, just coffee at a cafe, walks in the park, or browsing antique shops. I loved how Henry saw the world, how he would point out the way sunlight danced on a leaf or tell me stories about the places he had been. He made me feel alive, like I was part of something bigger. I did not realize my feelings were shifting until one day at the cafe. I was rambling about some book, and a strand of hair fell in my face. Henry reached across the table to tuck it behind my ear, his fingers brushing my cheek for just a second longer than necessary. My heart stopped. His eyes locked on mine, and I felt this heat, this pull, like the air between us was electric. I blushed so hard I thought I would melt, and he just smiled, like he knew something I was only starting to understand. That moment changed everything. I started noticing how my stomach fluttered when he laughed, how I would catch myself daydreaming about him. I was 18, he was 70, and I was terrified to admit what I was feeling. Society has all these rules about who you are supposed to love, and we were breaking every single one. But the more time we spent together, the less I cared. One evening, we were walking through the park at sunset, the air crisp and golden. We stopped by this big oak tree, and I could not hold it in anymore. My heart was pounding as I said, "Henry, do you ever think about us as more than friends?" He looked at me, his eyes soft but serious, and said, "Ellie, I have thought about it more than I should. But I am 70. You are so young, with so much life ahead. I do not want to hold you back." His words hurt, not because he was rejecting me, but because he was trying to protect me. But I did not want protection, I wanted him. So I took a deep breath and said, "You are not holding me back. You are showing me what it means to feel alive." And then I kissed him, right there under the tree, with the leaves falling around us. It was soft, hesitant, but it felt like the world clicked into place. From that moment, we were something more. We did not label it at first, calling it dating felt too heavy, too loaded with what other people might think. But we were together, in every way that mattered. We would spend evenings at his house, this cozy little place filled with books, old records, and the smell of cedar. He would cook dinner, simple things like roasted vegetables or pasta, and we would sit by the fire, talking about everything from philosophy to the stars. Sometimes we would dance to his old vinyls, my head against his chest, his arms wrapped around me, and it felt like the safest place in the world. Now, I know some of you are probably wondering about the physical side of things. I get it, it is a big age gap, and I was curious too at first. I had never been with someone so much older, and I did not know what to expect. But let me tell you, being with Henry was incredible. It was not just about the act itself, it was about the way we connected, the way every touch felt like a conversation. The first time we were intimate, I was nervous, my heart racing as we sat on his couch, the fire crackling nearby. He looked at me, his eyes full of warmth and something deeper, and asked, "Are you sure?" I nodded, because I had never been more sure of anything. When he kissed me that night, it was slow, deliberate, like he was savoring every second. His hands were gentle but confident, tracing my shoulders, my arms, my waist, like he was memorizing me. There was no rush, no urgency, just this deep, burning connection that made my skin tingle. When we moved to his bedroom, the moonlight spilling through the window, it felt like we were in our own world. His touch was so attentive, so reverent, like I was something precious. Every kiss, every caress, was filled with this quiet intensity that made my heart pound and my breath catch. I felt desired in a way I had never known, not just for my body but for who I was. And I could tell he felt it too, the way his breath hitched, the way his hands trembled slightly, like he could not believe we were here, together. What made it so special was not just the physical, it was the emotion behind it. Henry had this way of making every moment feel meaningful. He would whisper my name like it was a prayer, his voice low and warm, and it sent shivers down my spine. There were moments when we would pause, just looking at each other, and I would feel this overwhelming sense of closeness, like our souls were intertwined. It was passionate, yes, but it was also tender, like we were sharing something sacred. I remember one night, lying in his arms afterward, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. He traced circles on my back and told me stories about the constellations, and I felt like I was floating, wrapped in this warmth that was so much more than physical. It was not always soft and slow, there were times when the passion took over, when the air between us felt charged, like we could not get close enough. One evening, after a long day apart, we barely made it through the door before we were kissing, urgent and hungry, like we had been starving for each other. His hands were in my hair, pulling me closer, and I could feel the heat of his body against mine, the way his grip tightened like he did not want to let go. It was electric, overwhelming, and yet even in those moments, there was this undercurrent of care, of love. We would collapse afterward, laughing, breathless, tangled in each other, and I would think, this is what it means to be alive. I know some people might not get it, how could a 19-year-old and a 70-year-old have that kind of chemistry? But it worked because it was not about age, it was about us. Henry's experience, his patience, made every moment feel like a gift. He knew how to listen to my body, how to make me feel seen and wanted in a way I had never experienced before. And I loved making him feel the same, watching the way his eyes lit up, the way his breath caught when I touched him. It was mutual, equal, a dance we both led. Of course, the world outside was not as kind. My friends thought it was weird, some called it gross, others just drifted away. My parents were horrified, convinced Henry was taking advantage of me. But they did not see what I saw, the way he made me laugh until I cried, the way he challenged me to think deeper, the way he held me like I was his whole world. He was not some creepy old guy, he was my partner, my love. Henry had his own doubts, too. Late at night, he would tell me he worried he was selfish for loving me, that I should be with someone my own age, living my youth. It broke my heart, because to me, he was not old, he was vibrant, curious, passionate. I would tell him, "You are not stealing my future. You are making it better," and I meant it. We faced so much judgment, stares when we held hands in public, whispers at restaurants. Once, someone asked if he was my grandfather, and it stung more than I expected. But Henry would just squeeze my hand and say, "Let them talk. They do not know us," and he was right. What we had was ours, and no one could take that away. One of my favorite memories was this summer, when we took a trip to the coast. Just the two of us, in a little cottage by the beach. We would walk along the shore at sunrise, his hand warm in mine, the waves crashing around us. At night, we would sit on the porch, sharing a glass of wine, the ocean singing in the background. And then there were the nights in that cottage, when the world felt like it belonged to us. One night, after a day of swimming and laughing in the waves, we went back to the cottage, our skin salty and warm from the sun. The air was thick with tension, like a storm brewing. His kisses were slow at first, deliberate, each one pulling me deeper into a haze of want. His hands, steady and knowing, traced my skin like he was mapping every inch of me, and I could feel the heat of his desire mirroring mine. There was no rush, just this deep, consuming connection that made my whole body hum. When we moved to the bedroom, the moonlight painted his face in silver, and I saw this look in his eyes, part reverence, part hunger. It set me on fire. His touch was confident, unhurried, every caress sent sparks through me. He knew exactly how to draw out every sensation, his fingers and lips finding places that made me gasp, made my head spin. And the way he responded to me, his soft groans, the way his grip tightened when I touched him, made it clear he was just as lost in it. It was like we were speaking a language only we understood, every movement a promise, every moment a shared secret. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets, my head on his chest, his heartbeat steady under my ear. He'd whisper stories about the stars outside, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my back, and I'd feel this overwhelming warmth, like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Those nights were everything, passion, love, connection, all wrapped into one. But it wasn't always so soft. Some moments were pure fire. One night, after days apart, we barely made it through his front door. The air crackled between us, and his kisses were fierce, hungry, his hands pulling me close like he couldn't stand any space between us. I matched his intensity, my fingers digging into his shoulders, our breaths mingling in sharp, desperate gasps. The way he pressed himself against me, the low growl in his throat, it was raw, electric, like we were chasing something we'd never catch. We collapsed afterward, laughing, breathless, wrapped in each other, and I felt alive in a way I'd never known before. Henry's age didn't make it less, it made it more. His experience, his patience, his focus on me, it was like he saw every part of me and loved it all. He'd take his time, learning what made me shiver, what made me melt, and I loved doing the same for him, watching his eyes darken with want, feeling the way his body responded to my touch. It was never just physical, it was us, pouring everything into each other, body and soul. The world didn't make it easy, though. My friends called it creepy or wrong and most of them ghosted me. My parents flipped out, saying I was too young to understand, that Henry was manipulating me. But they didn't see the way he looked at me, like I was his entire universe. They didn't feel the way my heart raced when he held me, the way his love made me stronger, braver. Henry worried, too, late at night, he'd confess he felt guilty, like he was stealing my youth. I'd kiss him and say, "You're not stealing anything. You're giving me everything," and I meant it. We got stares in public, whispers behind our backs. Someone once asked if he was my grandpa, and it cut deep. But Henry would just hold my hand tighter and say, "They don't know us, Ellie," and he was right. Our love was ours, every heated glance, every stolen kiss, every night we spent wrapped in each other. One memory stands out, a summer trip to a seaside cottage. We'd spend mornings walking the beach, hand in hand, and nights losing ourselves in each other. One night, after a day in the sun, we stumbled into the bedroom, still damp from the ocean, laughing like kids. His kisses tasted like salt and wine, and the way he touched me, slow, then urgent, lit me up inside. The waves crashed outside as we moved together, every touch a spark, every moment a flame. Afterward, we lay there, my body curled against his, the sound of the ocean mixing with his soft breathing, and I knew I'd never felt so whole. Henry's taught me that love doesn't care about age or rules. It's about finding someone who sets your soul on fire, who makes every touch feel like a promise. I know we don't have forever, time's shadow is always there, but it makes every moment burn brighter. I'm 19, he's 70, and I've never been happier. So, Reddit, that's my story. I don't expect everyone to get it, but if you've ever felt love that consumes you, maybe you'll understand. Thanks for reading. Be kind in the comments, okay?